This is session 1 of what I'm calling Justice, Mercy and Grace. And so this week I'm going to try tackling the issue of God's justice, God's mercy and God's grace. And it's a real issue, how to reconcile the God who judges justly and the God who is a God of incredible love. Now people tend to come down on either end of that. Either they say, well, God is the God who punishes the wicked, or they say God's love just covers everything. How do we reconcile God as the God of justice and the God of love? Now there are those who say that the God of the Old Testament is not the same as the God of the New Testament. In fact, there was an early Christian by the name of Marcion, and he was one who gathered together many of the books or the writings that make up the Bible, but there was no Old Testament in it and very little of the gospel material, because he said that there were two separate gods. Well, okay, he got it all wrong there, but at least it led the church to get together and say, all right, we need to make a decision on which books are included in the scripture and which aren't. And so that's how we get our modern day compilation, which is the Bible. Now there are some things in the Old Testament that sound pretty awful. One incident is in Leviticus chapter 10, and God had just appointed the priesthood. Aaron was the high priest and his sons were to be priests. Now they were commanded to regard God as holy and to honour God. Their task was to honour God before the people and teach the people how to honour God. So priesthood just been established and the first sacrifice was made. And as the animal was put on the altar sacrificed, God sent fire from heaven. And the fire came down and consumed the sacrifice. And it was so powerful that all the people just fell face down to worship God. Two of the sons of Aaron decided they wanted to get in on the act. So off their own bat, they decided to put incense in their incenses and put it on the altar. And because it had not been commanded by God, and it wasn't the incense that he had commanded them to use, fire came out and they were killed. Sounds pretty fierce. Another incident was when the Ark of the Covenant was being carried up to Jerusalem. Now normally the Ark was carried by poles on the priest's shoulders. There were rings on each corner of the Ark and they would put a pole right through the rings and then lift it up on the shoulders of the priests. This time they put it on an ox cart and the priests walked beside it. And one of the oxes stumbled and it looked like the cart might fall. So one of the priests put out his hand to steady the cart and he died immediately. You see, the ark represented the very presence of God. And no one was to touch the ark because you can't touch the very presence of a holy God. And so as he reached out to touch it, what he was really saying is, my hand is less impure than the ground onto which it might fall. Now the ground was just being ground, that's what it was created to be. But he's saying, but my hand is less impure than it hitting the ground. Well, that's not true. Sure, the priests had a task to do, but they did wrong things like the rest of us. And so they were impure, and to touch the presence of the holy God was just not on. Why would God take such drastic action? Well, the priests were there to honour God and to teach the people to honour God. And so what they did completely dishonoured God. They made a mockery of their role. So it's a case of that they actually just took the natural consequences of what they did, because it's not possible for us to actually touch or even see the holy God. He is too pure and too holy, and we just wouldn't survive. So these incidents aren't God getting mad and lashing out and punishing. They simply are the consequences of dishonouring a holy God.
Call like an aim in the darkness and watch as your glory unfolds. For there is no measure or end to the power you hold. Justice and truth are your virtues, with many to vast for our words. No mind contains the splendor of all that you are. Our God has done great things. Our God is greater than all. Miracles are your memorial, the promise of wonders to come. You are the author, God, you complete